Thanks, Brant, and thank you, everyone. Another round of applause. Way to show up this morning and get after the workout. Well done. It's awesome to have another 38 challenge in the books. With this, we've done other events. We were at Dallas-Fort Worth, TCU's campus a couple of weeks ago, but there's nothing like being on the track by the football field that made Matt the man he was. I think hearing Eye of the Tiger in the background at one point helped, but I definitely was very just reminiscent of Matt's time here. So this place holds a near and dear spot to our hearts. It's really an honor to be here with you all this morning and have the opportunity to share a few words about Matt's life and about the legacy that he's left. Many of you have become familiar with his story by now, and as you probably know, Matt was an incredible man who accomplished amazing things in his 31 years of life. Not only was he a hard-hitting linebacker, both here at Lafayette and then going on to the Naval Academy, but he was also a champion boxer and went on to have an impressive career as a captain in the United States Marine Corps. So I'm going to take just a brief moment to share with you who Matt was and reflect on who he still is to those of us who love him and have grown to love him through learning his story. But in equal importance, we want to share what the 38 challenge has become to us who still grieve his loss. Matt Man was the kind who pushed you to be better, not necessarily with many words, but rather through his actions. He was someone who never made excuses as he worked towards his goals with incredible strength of both body and mind. He also knew his audience well and how to motivate people in turn. With Brant, he'd drag him out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning for workouts when he was home from college break, but with me, he'd take a more delicate approach. Matt made sure to read 20 books a year just because he could, and he always called us every Sunday without fail because there was no work week stressor that stopped him from prioritizing his family. And most of all, this same drive drove him into a deep pursuit of relationship with Christ. As we watched our older brother navigate life, we swelled with pride. This made the phone call we received on February 19th, 2021, even more shocking. Right before I got the news of his passing, I had been on the phone with a mentor. I was in an isolated position myself during that season of life, leading a school through the COVID-19 pandemic. I had been just crying on the phone telling her, I feel so alone in this job. I don't see this getting better. It was during that same conversation that I got a couple of urgent calls from my mom, followed up with text messages. When I finally called her back, my mom told me in a calm voice, the fire chief in Kansas City called us. Matt took his life this morning. It broke me. To start, Matt was supposed to be driving to St. Louis that day to visit me for the weekend after another week of basic training for firefighting in Kansas City. We had plans to, grab Mexican food, go to our favorite arcade bar, and go to church together on Sunday morning. Even though I was having a hard time, I always looked forward to his visits. He was my best friend. But what was more, I was having my own struggles with mental health at that time. Now, mind you, I hadn't found myself in Matt's position, but there were days I had to lie on my side, curled up with an anxiety attack, or I'd sit in bed that night just not wanting to wake up to what the day was going to have in store for me tomorrow. His passing and the suddenness of it struck me deep. In a way, it invigorated me to get unstuck and pursue the life my older brother would have wanted for me. So what was it that pushed Matt over the edge? After all, we all know that mental health is a destination, or it's a journey. It's not a destination you ever reach to, and have all had seasons of struggling with anxiety or depression. Now, as a family, we knew that Matt had been struggling to adjust to his to civilian life after an 11-year career in the military. but we didn't realize the extent of the inner battle. It was in the following months that we learned more about chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or more commonly known as CTE, and the effects of PTSD. Because it was these terms, along with Christianity and effects of suicide on family, that were the most trafficked searches on Matt's devices. The newfound understanding of Matt's invisible wounds drove my family to spread awareness, and for my younger brother, in kind, to start this nonprofit. Within 4 months, he rallied and hosted the first 38 challenge here at Lafayette for all of the proceeds to go to research at the Concussion Legacy Foundation. And now, as we're here for the 3rd year of this event, the challenge has grown into something far greater than any of us could have expected. Because it began as an opportunity to tell Matt's story, but is now turned into a platform to share the stories of so many others who find themselves without a voice. Some people who showed up this morning are veterans or have ties to the military community or are warrior athletes, but others of you have experienced what, in the moment, has felt like a debilitating season of anxiety and depression. And while we know that mental health matters, it is still one of the hardest things to open up and talk about. Sometimes we brush it off as seeming too emotional, or also we're afraid that we'll be alienated or judged if we're actually honest with the people around us. But more often than not, when you share your moment of struggle with people who've earned the right to hear your story and have your trust, it's going to fuel greater connection with them, and you'll receive compassion and care. We know that vulnerability is important, but it is far easier said than done. We didn't know how to have conversations with Matt about these things until it was too late. So no matter what caused you to set the early morning alarm clock and come out here this morning, it's the mission of leaning on one another and eliminating the stigma around mental health that unite all of us here today. And in realizing that that is the ultimate goal of the 38 Challenge and Mission 38, I think Matt would have been proud. He was always shy about being in the spotlight, but he'd be the first one to get out there and give the workout his all. Thanks, you guys. Back to Brant.